trust the CIA or you don't trust like our institutions, then what do you trust? Wait, so if you don't trust the CIA or you don't trust like our institutions, then what do you trust?
The last track, I think I only blinked once. I skipped lunch. Blinked twice. Christ, shut your eyes. Now open wide. Fascists took the nation and inflation took a supersize. It's sad to say your teachers couldn't quite make the ends collide. But now you'll probably get to see them on the weekends doing Uber drives. Say lube it with a little oil. One, it tastes expensive too. You'd be surprised how well it helps you open up your throat so you consume the lie of human rights that was sold to you by suits and ties, designer scents on plastic men with patient fangs and ancient vice. You know, the kind of greed that makes a person lose the sight of morals, so it's easier to sleep at night. It's easier to ease their minds and pick a foreign people we could demonize. If you take a sec to sink into how war criminals think, you'll know you'd never want to see inside. If every man's an open book to look within, theirs are bound in human skin and not designed for human eyes. They are wearing human skin, but they can simply not be humanized. They aren't worth the lowest of the poor they swore to crucify. Holy sweet Geneva, there's a mass grave full of dead believers you called the police on cause you don't believe in squatters' rights. You believe the sanctity of human life is relative to human worth in terms of work and dollar signs. So listen when I say you need to find the light of day before it's too late to apologize. Like holy sweet Geneva, here's a mass grave you can colonize. Because you seem to love to talk about the spirit of America. But if you saw the spirit of this land's supposed character, I think that you'd be calling ICE. And I also think the actual America is truly represented by the call to ICE. Is represented best by the descendants of some immigrants bitching about the immigrants, snitching on some immigrants, then playing dumb and innocent like good little Christians when their neighbors get deported. Until they're screaming at the store that they waited 20 minutes more because the staff was short. Because some ordinary bigot started waging war on immigrants. And honey, we'll just keep deporting because like your first vote and each election since, it turned out that the man you are supporting ended up to just be twice the fucking bigot as the bigot that he wins against. But I was not among the herd. A single word from Biden stirred a tingle in the cynic's sense. I knew that a vote for Joe was more like Reagan 2.0. I could smell that sarin smoke that choked around the river bend, and so I spoke about a living end, about an anchor thrown to drowning men, a democratic president, a country never found again. A man who marinated in the blood this land was founded in. A crime bill that contains sufficient lethal ends to drown us in. All written by a man who wears a crown of sins, who currently is sleeping in a bed of sins. And it's no wonder those who truly understand the meaning of democracy are not too keen to let us in. It's no wonder other countries can't conceive of skipping meals or missing rent or being on the streets because you can't afford your medicine. That's uniquely American. And Joe has proved to be the most disturbingly American of presidents. I shiver when I think of what's to come if he's the precedent. It's a wonder I can even function still to process all the rhymes through all the resonance. Bless my heart, I'm liminally reticent, standing on a threshold of bone, ash, and sediment, near a faded marker claiming this to be the grave of all my sentiments, exactly where I left them all and just how I remembered it. It's a wonder I can even function still to process all the rhymes through all the resonance. Bless my heart, I'm liminally reticent, standing on a threshold of bone, ash, and sediment, near a faded marker claiming this to be the grave of all my sentiments, exactly where I left them all, and just how I remembered it.
Wait, so if you don't trust the CIA or you don't trust like our institutions, then what do you trust? Wait, so if you don't trust the CIA or you don't trust like our institutions, then what do you trust?
Fuck.
So if you don't trust the CIA or you don't trust like our institutions, then what do you trust?
They'll gladly pay you by the hour for a minute or so, so you can sign off on the towers where they'll piss on your home. And if you feel like you're just powerless to answer them no, it's 'cause you are. They'll gladly pay you by the hour for a minute or so, so you can sign off on the towers where they'll piss on your home. And if you feel like you're just powerless to answer them no, it's 'cause you are. It's 'cause you are. They'll gladly stagnate a living wage, snap the chains, bury it. Labor slaves in rusty cages dragged behind a chariot, led by Mr. Racial Jungle, Joseph or Iscariot, fighting over scraps as they barrage us all with variants and BuzzFeed clickbait, straight until we're paralyzed, trying to distract us from the concentration camps that Joe had swore he'd close but only chose to amplify, where they got 50-something kids in cages made for 5 to occupy. And no, she hasn't seen the camps, but Harris swears they're paradise. She tells us the facilities are safe, and that right down to the women, they are regularly sterilized. Then she throws her head back and she proceeds to laugh, that sort of heartless cackle you'd expect from someone working steadfastly on behalf of the virus and a Congress full of parasites. And where was I? I was busy cashing every blue check, demonstrating plainly all the narratives expected from the verified. I was busy breeding verbal leeches by the terabyte. Train them to exsanguinate the wealthy while they sleep at night. Bleed the oil barons dry and barren, say they showed us how to share and now we share alike. Tell them I contracted rabies from a feral mic. Now I'm just another species losing sleep to noise pollution and these glaring lights, forced to change its habits and adapt to just survive. But now it's safe to say that some of us are thriving in the moment, throwing shit on presidential homes beneath the Paris skies. So if you feel like you're just powerless, I guess you bought the lie. But I can tell they're petrified of our collective might, 'cause I can hear those gentrifiers weeping at the sight of our collective rights. And I only can imagine the intensifying fear of knowing revolution's near, and all that's left to do is simply wallow in the thick anticipation of a rabid bite. And baby, one day you can ask your leaders just what that was like before you grab a slice. So if you think you're powerless, allow me now to change your mind. Honey, if you think you're powerless, allow me now to change your mind.
Hi everybody, this is Indy, and I've got a whole group of people with me, and we're excited to have you guys here. Oh, there's, you can see my screen, so let me change that and put on my full bird. Hey, there you go. Now we're the way we need to be. Hi everybody. Again, this is Indy. I've got some special friends here. I've got Collin, of course, INN co-founding member, and I've got some special Amazon organizers and fired employees, and I'm not sure about current employees, but definitely we're here to talk about what's happening in the warehouses, what's happening around organizing. Again, I'm Indy. Hi everybody, I'm Indy from Indy Left News, also co-founding member of INN. And so we're here. We got a limited amount of time. I want to get to it. So I want to first have everybody introduce themselves. We'll start with Matt C. and let's talk about why you're here and what we're going to talk about today. Go ahead, Matt.
Me? Which Matt?
Yeah, Matt.
Yes.
Matt C.A.U.S.E.
Okay. Okay, yeah. So I'm a organizer with Amazon workers. I was formerly an organizer with the Amazon Labor Union. I joined the ALU in October of last year and was with the organization until late May, at which point I was fired, and then actually I was expelled from the union. And so then I started organizing with worker organizers across the country, focusing on the education aspects of the organizing mission. So there's a lot of workers, who want to start organizing, don't know how to start, don't know thing one about where to begin. What the ALU did in our victory in JFK 8 was inspire workers across the country and around the world to realize that they can do this on their own, even without an established union, without major resources. But still, workers didn't necessarily know how to start. So that's where I've been focusing my efforts, education. I just finished writing an organizing manual that I'm going to be putting up on the website, which is still incomplete, but will soon be redesigned, amazonworkers.org. So I'm working with any Amazon organizer, regardless of institutional affiliation. I support it all.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, really. And I appreciate you making the time to be here and to educate people about, again, what's happening, both to the workers that are in the warehouse, the workers that are out of the warehouses, the struggles that they're going through, and the struggles that everybody's having to figure out how do we organize this massive beast. And I remember the first time we spoke to Matt Luttrell, and we're gonna talk to Matt in a second and have him introduce himself. He said that I believe it was 1 in every 4 people in the next 3 years are going to be working for Amazon in some way, shape, or form, which is just remarkable. So yeah, we have to figure out how do we organize everyone that's going to be doing that. So Matt Luttrell, could you do me a favor and introduce yourself?
Hey, I'm Matt Luttrell, and I am from Central Kentucky. I started at Amazon in February of last year. And I quickly started to notice many discrepancies within the workplace, many inequalities between full-time employees and seasonal employees, because I started as a seasonal employee. And then I also noticed that employees were getting injured all of the time, and that management wasn't particularly caring about it at all. They would sort of pretend to care. And I started looking at potential solutions, and none of them were like, hey, let's go through the proper channels. As I said, they don't care. So I thought, hey, we need to get workers together to demand these things, to demand that our grievances be met and our working conditions be improved. So I formally became radicalized by just hearing and talking to all of my coworkers and knowing what their problems were. Then I contacted a union in December. It was the Machinist Union. And, those people helped us get our organizing committee set up. We started building it, and it all went pretty well. Amazon started retaliating against me shortly after the Amazon Labor Union victory in Staten Island. They started getting very, very uptight and watching every move that people made in the warehouse. And so when they started retaliating against me, of course, I had the union organizers help me out with unfair labor practices, all of the whisper campaigns, and all of the sort of bullying that was going on against me, just for daring to speak out. Then, we kept making progress, and picking up momentum, losing momentum and things up until, Amazon fired me. And that was a month ago on August 19th, which they notified me of my termination 2 weeks late. They should have fired me like 2 weeks prior. But the fact that Amazon will allow you to go around without any kind of notification that you've had a write-up or any kind of notification of it at all, even though it's automatically generated by a machine, you just are shit out of luck when that moment finally comes. And so organizing has definitely taken a toll since then, but we're keeping the organizing committee on the inside together.
Wow, what a crazy story. So it was like a computer glitch almost. It almost sounds like The Office, like like they said, we just fixed the glitch, and all of a sudden now you didn't get your notifications. Like, oh yeah, oh, wow, what a mess. Tim, I know you've got a crazy story also. Again, Matt, we're going to get to everybody, and I just want to give everybody enough time to get to have people hear about what's happening to them, and of course we'll get to Jason as well. We'll ask a few questions, and again, these are fired Amazon employees who were trying to organize their warehouses, and we're here to support them to have people hear their stories and to come up with some solutions on how do we educate and bring more of the public in, as well as to get our message out to the other employees about how we can organize without being retaliated against and fight back. So again, thank you for coming, Tim. This is Tim Platt from RDU1.
Hey, how's everybody doing? Thank you for having me today, Indy. And I guess where C.A.U.S.E started originally at RDU1. Mary Hill and Reverend Ryan were the original, I guess, the co-founders of C.A.U.S.E. I got involved at RDU. I'm actually at RDU5, and it was from some local activists that were passing out flyers. That led to, I guess that was around the time ALU and Bessemer were in the news. I mean, they still are in the news, but when they just started getting in the news, and that was like initiated, that whole those events initiated. So, from there, when we saw that, I guess that effect was reaching all the way back to the South, I saw some flyers, and that's kind of how we got connected. And over months' time, we ended up adding the co-founders, Reverend Ryan and Mary Hill, and they came up with the idea of C.A.U.S.E, which stands for Carolina Amazonians United for Solidarity and Empowerment. And I would say, just throughout the pandemic, we were dependent on so much as essential workers, and we delivered. Amazon in 2021 made over $30 billion in revenue, and it was record revenue. And the Amazon warehouse workers didn't have anything to show for it at the end of the day. And that really, I could see the morale in the warehouse. It's almost like they're doing the work for us. You could see the morale in the warehouse just plummet, throughout that whole process during COVID and beyond. And it actually, with inflation, it's actually worse. We're actually worse off than what we were pre-pandemic. Even with the raises, it hasn't kept up with everything going on, in the economy and with prices and inflation. So since then, the numbers don't lie. We have had over 700 C.A.U.S.E members sign interest forms. It's been an amazing response from the community, all these groups, People's Alliance, Carolina Forward, Jobs with Justice. Like, everyone's been in there, and we have a GoFundMe set up, and they've been pitching in, and we've just been able to do some amazing things in terms of organizing. I would say what really makes C.A.U.S.E go is from the top, there's a real strong emphasis on delegation and getting everybody involved, really finding out everybody's strengths, and we apply that. We have a really, I would say, an impressive business structure in C.A.U.S.E, with several subcommittees. I'm chair of fundraising, also the executive treasurer. We have the social media branch, public relations, recruiting, which we all kind of are naturally recruiters because it's the most important thing of everything. If without recruiting, this is nothing. But yeah, it's that emphasis on delegation. We all get exposed to, in terms of speaking to the media. That's training, that's helping us with our talking points with our coworkers, and telling our story, and just that whole recruiting effort. We're all leaned on to head events. We have food banks, community events, break room events, flyering, of course. And it's just been a real, just to see, sometimes we kind of sit back and we get frustrated at times. That I think that naturally happens through the process, but we always kind of tell ourselves, look where we started, and kind of just remind ourselves. And to think that we have thousands of dollars in the GoFundMe, and just all these members that come, and they're a part of these weekly calls, and it's more than weekly calls. I'm probably on like 3 or 4 meetings a week easily. And it's just really uplifting to see where we've come.
That's fantastic.
And,
yeah, seriously.
Yeah,
like you're doing all the things that we keep talking about, which is one-to-one communication, delegating and spreading out responsibility, not pulling all of your stock in one person, one personality, getting the larger community involved. I mean, I love everything I'm hearing about what you guys are doing. And again, I really appreciate that Jason's here. I know Jason also was working at the JFK 8 facility. I'd love to hear a little bit more about your story. I think you were actually with the A.O.U, so I'd love to hear a little bit about your experience there. Again, and we're going to give everybody a chance to talk a little bit more about what's happening within your facility and organizing. And we would like to bring all of you back to have one-on-one interviews, more in-depth to talk. Again, I don't want this to be a one-off thing. I want to have constant communication and engagement, and give the workers a real platform to be able to speak directly to the general public and to all of the other workers without the filter of corporate media or advertisers or anybody else's influence. That's what we do, what we want to do at Indie News Network. So again, I appreciate you being here, Jason. The floor and the mic is yours.
Thank you for having me. As always, thank you, Matt, Latrell, for inviting me over. I've been at JFK since 2018. I was fired in July of 2020 due to UPT, and then I came back on October of last year. Then I've been employed since. The A.O.U has been having a heavy presence at JFK 8 since April of last year. They barely had a national call this past Tuesday. They're planning to have one tonight. The A.O.U has been expanding throughout the state. They're having an election in Albany in October 10th. They tried to organize Matt Latrell's facility without success. They tried to organize RDU1 without success. Being inside the A.O.U, like Matt C.A.U.S.E said, is not easy. The organizers inside the A.O.U are not easy to deal with. they don't delegate things. They don't communicate within the team. The president of the A.U., he is organizing as we speak other Amazon facilities on the low without, and I repeat, without telling the rest. And we are finding out that he is organizing an Amazon facility in the West Coast. And the only way that we are finding out that he is doing all of this organizing, traveling, is through his Instagram story. And all the rest of the organizing team, there's lack of being professional. I've been in the public spotlight for over a decade, and there's no respect between the organizers. And this is why I decided to step aside from the A.U., because they brag about certain things. And this is why the A.U. has no accountability about themselves.
Wow.
And even Chris Moss almost got arrested recently twice in front of the facility in Albany because of Amazon.
Yeah, they keep calling the cops on him, right?
They keep calling the cops not only on him and on Gerald Bryson and on Jordan Flowers.
Wow. Okay.
Well, that also happened during our campaign. Jason was one of the people who was arrested in front of JFK 8, along with Chris and Brett Daniels. And Brett Daniels had been arrested once before at the bus stop that we organized at. So it definitely, Amazon's tactics against organizing are extreme. They're designed to instill fear in workers, and they're succeeding in instilling fear in workers. So that's, it's step number one for organizing anywhere in Amazon is combating that fear and the futility thinking that goes along with it. People think, oh, if we organize, if we even start to try to do that, the only thing that will happen is we'll get fired. And if we succeed, the only thing that will happen is the warehouse will get shut down. And Amazon has made it clear that they don't plan to ever abide by the law, and the NLRB has not been very helpful in defending workers' rights. And all Biden has done is shake Chris's hand and say that he supports organizing. There's this epidemic of Amazon management criminality. And so, yeah, I mean, one of the things that we will really have to work out strategically is how to avoid getting fired, because it's a problem. It's always a risk. Organizing is always a risk, and certain people won't be able to take that risk, and certain people will. But we do have a responsibility to our fellow coworkers and organizers to minimize that risk as much as possible. Not only to save their own livelihoods, but also to advance our cause. And so that's definitely something I'm continuing to think about and talk with workers about. Would love to talk about here or wherever. How do we address Amazon's will to use the most aggressive tactics?
Oh, what do you think?
I totally
go ahead, Jason.
I totally agree with Matt C. And like, for example, EWR 9 in Carteret, New Jersey,
Mm.
was closed for approximately 2 to 3 weeks due to OSHA because an Amazon worker passed away during Prime Week,
Right.
and the ALU was doing a campaign collecting signatures because, again, they want to organize that facility under Amazon's radar. And since the ALU wants to unionize every single Amazon warehouse, and having Chris Moss, Cheryl Bryson, Jordan Flowers, and Derek Palmer as the 4 people who walked out on March 30th, 2020, when Chris Moss got fired. We should remember this, folks. In the middle of COVID, Amazon is doing this for a reason. Chris Moss has a case against Amazon. Gerald Bryson has a case against Amazon. Jordan Flowers has a medical suspension against Amazon. Derek Palmer is under the radar against Amazon. They all under the radar of Amazon. Michelle Nieves, she is the executive secretary of the ALU. She has been posting, and her Twitter page is flooded with racially profiled things, and I've been calling her out for the past 3 weeks about this, and the organization has been shutting me down because I did the right thing, and now they want me to apologize. And that's the kind of people that they want as the executive secretary. No, I am not going to apologize because their executive secretary posted on their Facebook page that she is probably pro-black union member.
Crazy stuff.
Meanwhile, she doesn't like to appear in cameras. Come on. She should know that she is in the public spotlight. Sooner or later, Amazon will find out sooner or later. Let's be honest. I had to testify as a witness in that trial against Amazon. And Amazon lawyers took every single post from Facebook and Twitter that they could find, and they tried to use that against me.
Sure.
Yeah, I think Jason's pointing to in his comments something I've noticed, and I've talked with C.A.U.S.E members about. There's definitely a difference in leadership style, organizing philosophy between C.A.U.S.E and the ALU leadership. Particularly, I've had discussions with Reverend Ryan, and obviously I did a lot of discussing with Chris Moss while I was in the ALU about organizing strategy. And I'm fully on board with C.A.U.S.E and had been since the beginning of my membership in the ALU, that the only way to build power as an organization and win for workers is to continually build out the organization, to build it bigger, to build it stronger, to give more people more power, put more people into positions of responsibility. And so when I first joined the ALU, one of the first things that I pushed for, along with Madeline Wesley, and I'd say Justine as well, setting up new what we call them committees. I don't really like the term committee, but groups for different responsibilities, like Tim was talking about, having finance group, having a materials group, having the newsletter committee, having all these different groups. We had a music group, so that there'd be a lot of different ways that we could recruit people in, not just say, come to the organizing committee. People don't necessarily know what that means, but, oh, you like to do art, you like to do social media, whatever it is, like there's a way that you can come in, and being in this committee, you'll have some responsibility for making decisions collectively within that group. And that'll bring you into the fold of how to do more technical sort of organizing, reducing the barrier to entry, democratizing the organization. Unfortunately, there was a lot of pushback against that. We did manage to set up those groups. Then in the consolidation of power after the JFK victory, right before I was expelled, they shut down most of those groups. They said it was streamlining the organization, but I don't think the organization needed to be streamlined at that point. We're a very small organizing committee. I think it needed to be grown, and I don't think that was it wasn't about efficiency. It was about I think the guiding philosophy of Chris Smalls is, I started this with a few of my buddies. We're the OGs. We make the decisions. We call the shots. Everybody else is here to support our decisions, which we'll make in secret. It doesn't matter. That's just not it's not what we told the workers who voted for the ALU, that was the union. We had a constitution which had flaws, but had a lot of democratic procedures in it. That got discarded after the election, after the second election, as they brought in a bunch of new lawyers to secretly rewrite the Constitution. Chris completely reorganized the executive board. So Madeline Wesley was kicked out as treasurer. There was no secretary because the secretary previously had stepped down. So that's when Michelle was appointed by Chris. Connor was put into the secretary position, and Angelica Maldonado was moved into a vice president position. Derek was moved down. All of that seemed to have been pretty unilaterally decided, and certainly secretly decided by the president in an executive board meeting. That was not announced. None of those decisions were announced, including my expulsion, for several weeks after those decisions were made. I think everybody found out about Angelica becoming vice president because she announced it at the Amazon shareholder meeting. And Michelle tweeted or put in her Twitter bio that she was the secretary. That's how we found out that she was the secretary. None of those decisions were even announced to the organizing committee, let alone to the general membership, who are mostly in the dark, I think, about what's going on from my conversations with people who continue to be inside JFK 8. So I think there's a whole other philosophy going on with C.A.U.S.E, and I think that's a thing that we should really be talking about, is that organizing philosophy and those differences, and how that shakes out. What are the consequences of building a very small, very centrally empowered organization versus building a distributed democratic organization?
Yeah, decentralized, absolutely. And again, I really appreciate you sharing. It's remarkable to hear some of that stuff, and it's disheartening and sad. But look, we wrote an article, Collin and I, recently about that. And again, Collin, you got any? You've been sitting there for a little bit. Go ahead. I'm gonna let you have the mic.
I just have a question for you guys, and you can answer it however you want. But I just been thinking about this a lot, just in terms of Amazon workers directly, and just, the idea that you guys were fired and that hasn't been spotlighted at all. I think especially in mainstream media, in terms of what's happening, or I think mainstream media would mention it unless they have to, but generally your stories are not, you know, highlighted at all. So I have a couple of questions, like, how can people, and it doesn't have to be you necessarily, but I think Amazon workers in general, like what do you want people to know, like just generally in terms of like the reality of working for Amazon? And then like, two, how can people, again, support Amazon workers in general? It doesn't have to be you guys necessarily, but like, I think, you know, just how we can show solidarity to you guys in terms of what you've been through and how your stories are not being, you know, elevated into our mainstream consciousness, or, you know.
Yeah, I would believe that everybody should who wants to empower Amazon workers, you need to get in the same spaces as those workers, the same online spaces, and you need to pay attention to campaigns that are going on, whether it be a small campaign that isn't very publicized, like maybe the one in Atlanta, or you know, it's really important. And as soon as you start getting that momentum going and getting the word out there, it will spread. It will spread, and especially if you know any journalists that you can point to those campaigns. And you know, some tactics like when I was fired, like having a bunch of people trying to get Chris Smalls to actually put some acknowledgement towards the fact that I've been fired and throw some public support behind me. It you know, that still didn't work, but I got like a shit ton of people to start tagging Chris Smalls to try and get some kind of acknowledgement and support behind me.
Right.
But yeah, that's the thing. You have to put pressure on the media. You have to go and keep track of these campaigns. There's an excellent resource called hotlaborsummer.com where you can go and track all of the organizing that is going on in this country. So, you know, Starbucks workers, Amazon workers, railroad workers, all of it is there.
I would say, you know, we're doing it right now. Like appearances like this, and it seems like you're planning to continue this and push the awareness of what you know, what the Amazonians are going through, the organizational campaigns and the processes that, you know, where they're at. That, and then also, you know, we're in 2022. Social media is so prevalent. If you know, sharing and that you know, that type of exposure, it helps. Also, you know, just networking and what you know, anytime you hear of something like what happened to Matt Luttrell up in Kentucky, you know, if you may have, or maybe there might be somebody like you in Kentucky that's local that has, you know somebody or has resources, but it's really going to take a community effort. And we've had a few, Albert, our VP, he was fired over, you know, his over prescribed medicine. And the thing about that is, you know, we've all pitched in, we've used the connections. I think that's very important. And maybe that's, you know, we admire what ALU has done. You know, they've done the impossible, and, you know, they're one of the OGs in terms of starting up this movement. But I think what's really important is, you know, to sustain and keep that, you know, level going, you have to come through. I remember we had a meeting with Chris, and there was a lot of talks about hedging those risks. And Amazon is actively trying to fire and get rid of, they call it trim the fat. They're trying to get rid of labor costs and fire employees, put them out on the street. They do not care. You have a lot of Amazonians that, you know, that sleep in parking lots. They take crazy commutes to work using public transportation, and they're not even letting them in the building until 15 minutes before your shift. We have winter coming, you know, where they got to sit out and wait outside the building. So they're really trying to get rid of people because they overexpanded during COVID. So where I feel like it's a real critical focus for ALU, AU, for C.A.U.S.E, for the folks in Bessemer, DWSU, everybody out here that's part of this movement, the Teamsters, to come through for those people and be a union, even before you get the NORB or whatever your views is, your end goal is with that. Be a union and come through for those people that need it, that are getting unjustly fired at Amazon.
Well, I want to ask about funding when it comes to all of that, because of course we want to have solidarity funds, strike funds, and give you guys the ability and the power. I know you want to have the ability to withhold labor, but of course one of the major things is you need the backing and financial knowledge that your bills are going to be paid while you do so. So my big question, when it comes to that is, how are we going to build a fund large enough? Now you're talking about, act as if you're already in a union. Does that mean that we're already asking the employees to kind of contribute a little bit financially before you're officially unionized so that we can get this thing off the ground?
That's a little tricky there. But there's other ways that you can deliver. You can help. We've actively as a group, whenever we've had Summer, we've had Darren, we've had a few, I'm just naming names you guys don't know, but we've had a few members or a handful of members that have been terminated. And what we do actively is we go out there and try to help them find new employment. I think there's nuance to that whole don't quit, organize, because we are, I'm a part-time Amazon associate at RDU5, but I don't even tell people I work at Amazon. I'm a full-time organizer. I go to Amazon to organize. So I feel like for some people, that whole don't quit, organize is for some people, it's not realistic because the pay is so low, especially people that live in these areas that are more expensive, like us in Raleigh, Durham, like ALU up in New York, the tri-state area. So I feel like there's more than one way, to skin a cat. There's a will, there's a way. So even without a strike fund, you could still help them gain employment. You could still connect them with groups that could help them. Maybe there's activist groups that can hire them as organizers or activists to help us with the cause. So really it's, it kind of comes down to the central goal or the approach that we take. At C.A.U.S.E, it's about educating, engaging, and empowering. And we're really just trying to build a community. You mentioned co-op in the beginning of this show. And, we just have to kind of rewrite the script and take leverage back to the working class. So, even without a strike fund, I still think there's other ways you can assist. And
absolutely,
yeah, that's another way you can help is, in terms of these shows and you're driving awareness, drive awareness to our, GoFundMes or the other avenues. Matt, you were telling me, C.A.U.S.E, you were telling me about another venue where you could put all your, treasury, open collective.
Open collective,
but just sharing that. And we just had a city councilman in Seattle. I should know her name, but she's great and she's down.
Shama Swan.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes, and she just donated. She donated 1,000 to us, and
wow,
it's
great.
And we appreciate everything. As small as a $10 donation or a $1, all the way up to that. But I mean, think of how many people. Before I got involved with C.A.U.S.E, I was doing fundraising for a city council, Leonardo Williams in Durham, and it was just I was so taken aback to how many people, when they believe in something in the community, they'll open their wallets, they'll write that check, and that's something that because money is important, and that's something that you can you all indie and other these alternative and independent news sources can really help us.
Yeah, and again, in helping you guys build out media structures in your own communication arms, because again, like I was saying, we've got some skills in how to webcast, how to organize ourselves. So we certainly want to assist in doing that, and it's using finding other independent media organizations. And I know there are some. I want to shout out Revolutionary Blackout Network. I want to shout out Hardlands Media. Also, Roar Media and Beauty and the Boomer, they're all down for amplifying and having more organizers and more workers on and shouting out, and again giving you guys control of the mic to be able to tell your stories. And I just love what Tim's talking about. I love what Matt's talking about. Jason has really been through it for years, and Matt, again, we recently met Matt, and Matt was telling us all about the Campbellsville facility and all the unique things that are happening at Kentucky, and that they were one of the original Amazon fulfillment centers, and that in a lot of the old ones they have, for example, in the newer ones they have equipment that automate and pick, right? You were telling us about that. Could you tell us a little bit more about some of the challenges that some of the workers at Campbellsville are encountering right now?
Yeah, so the point you had there about the automated picking and stowing and all of those processes, that doesn't exist in a fulfillment center that's been around since 1999. So if you're a picker, you're damn near walking 20 miles a night to do your work. It doesn't matter if you go to the 4th floor and you have to pick one item, and then your scanner says, hey, go to a completely different building. Oh, now you have to go down 3 flights of stairs and then go to that building. You can go to a building without any fans. They'll do the same thing they've done at a site where at a site in California, they publicly announced that, oh, it doesn't get above 77 degrees at that facility. Well, they'll do the same thing at SDF1. When you complain about the heat or something, they'll say, it doesn't get above 75 degrees. That's what Seattle sets the temperature to when they set the temperature range. And yeah, it's bullshit. They're experts at gaslighting employees, and sort of the older folks that have been here since the doors opened, they're very easily gaslit, because they had to deal with working conditions where there were like no fans at all or anything. People getting heat stroke every day and getting rushed out. It wouldn't even be cool down in there in the winter of all times. They just have the heat fucking blasting and no air circulation. And what's more egregious about that is they've recently made us adopt the safety shoe policy where you have to wear steel or composite toe shoes. And this screws up people's feet. You have to walk that far in those type of shoes. You're not gonna last very long, and it was negatively impacting everybody's performance too. One of the reasons I was singled out for productivity was definitely because I'm a union organizer, because I had been organizing so long and I had gone public with it, which I thought it was going to be a layer of protection in addition to unfair labor practices. But you guys can go and read about a ton of the articles, the press things that I've done, to hear more about how Amazon in Campbellsville is a company town. They took advantage of a desperate community that lost their main source of manufacturing when NAFTA was implemented and Fruit of the Loom went to South America. I think it went to Honduras. They just shut it down. 4,200 people lost their jobs, and then Jeff Bezos was like, "Yeah, we want some cheap labor. Let's set up here." And God, you have those people. They're always so afraid of the building being shut down or something like that because it's old, and because they have the trauma of either having lost their jobs at one time, and the trauma of being related to somebody that did get affected by the Fruit of the Loom closure, which we have like what I call the Fruit of the Loom Cemetery in Campbellsville. It's just like the ruins of the former plant. Just like it's not even that far away from Amazon. You can be on your way there and just see the concrete wreckage behind a fence and the overgrowth and all that shit.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Matt.
I just wanted to say something about what Tim was talking about in terms of the nuance of don't quit, organize, because some people can't afford to stay at Amazon because the job is just too exploitative, and it's hard to survive doing that. I think that's right, and I think maybe the nuanced position there is even if you do quit, organize. One of the things I was trying to push for early on in my time in the A.U. was to set up an ex-workers committee, because one of the things about Amazon all over the country, and this was before they overexpanded, and I think partly they're trying to fold this in, cover their tracks, but there's always been, New York Times did this big expose. They have a 3% per week attrition rate, so over 150% attrition rate. So the average median worker doesn't last more than 8 months. A lot of people don't last more than 2 weeks, and that's by design. They've built in a design where they're churning through workers. That way, workers are always at the minimum. Workers are disorganized. They don't know the policies. The policies are always changing, so they can't organize around them. And it's the design of Amazon. Even though Amazon has already recognized that there's a problem for them because they might actually literally run out of workers. But this is also a potential benefit for organizers because there's just an ever increasing number of ex-Amazon workers who do know all of the policies. They do know how the thing works. They can speak as workers, even though they're not technically currently workers. A.L.U. is led by an ex-worker. Chris Smalls hasn't worked at Amazon for 2 years. Gerald Bryson is an ex-worker. Jordan Flowers is an ex-worker. I'm still organizing Amazon as an ex-worker. Matt Luttrell is still organizing as an ex-worker. So there's a potential there. Every worker who leaves could still be tapped in, and could be spreading that sort of awareness to the next place that they work. And we could be focusing on tapping into that. Also, I'd say, in terms of like people who aren't. So one other thing is, this isn't for everybody, but if you want to support Amazon organizing, you could get a job at Amazon, even part-time. They also have jobs called Flex, where you can choose, pick up sort of position. You can pick up jobs sort of at random. You don't have to have a full set schedule. These are ways you can get inside of a warehouse and start talking to people about organizing as a worker. The term is called SALT. I don't think the term is particularly useful. It started as a boss's strategy to denigrate, especially Red Scare sort of communist tactics of people going, unions sending workers in to organize, and their claim was these aren't real workers. To a certain extent, Chris Smalls has adopted that philosophy. I disagree with it. There was an interesting panel with Chris and Jazz Brissac that Jason was at. I was at the People's Forum in New York, where this discussion of assaulting was, debated. Jazz is technically assault, so am I. But I mean, Jazz is assault in almost the traditional sense. She was working at Workers United. She independently wanted to go get a job and organize. The union didn't actually send her, but she did have a second job as a union organizer. A lot of the people who came in and supported and organized with the A.L.U., nobody was sending them there. We all just came to organize. And, Amazon's not a place where most workers are there for a long, long time. So it's not like a worker coming in to organize is that different from a worker who's coming in just to get paid and is going to be gone in 3 months. There's no significant difference between those. So if you have the chance, even maybe college students for a summer job or whatever, there are a lot of ways in which you could get into organizing with Amazon for a period of time, or as a side thing, and that could be really useful. And then when you leave, you can continue organizing as an ex-worker. And I think there's a way that we could be organizing that sort of network. I haven't figured out exactly how to do it, but I think that could be done. Money's nice, but money isn't the thing that's going to win unions at the end. And there's no organized Amazon workforce that's really close to striking or being capable of doing that sort of organized strike capacity. So strike funds, like, it's a nice idea, but it's not something it's not on the top 5 of what I think is important for organizing right now. People who want to support, I think, could also be doing a lot to just like publicize the stuff about Amazon, not only about Amazon organizing, but about how Amazon works as a company. You know, because Amazon like banked on a lot of goodwill for a long time. It was until fairly recently one of the most admired companies. That's because people didn't know how their packages got to them. They didn't know what workers went through. And now that they know that, you know, people like Joe Biden have to at least give lip service to supporting organizing, because people are like, this is terrible and it should stop. And so the more that people know how bad it is, the more people are just educating their friends and coworkers, the more pressures that there's going to be on politicians, on the company itself. The more inspiration there'll be for workers to organize, that they know that the public has their back. Those are the sorts of things I think could be really useful for anybody watching who's not an Amazon worker to support.
Yeah,
You're
I appreciate
also
that.
a,
Go ahead, Tim.
I said you're also a union card signer when you become an Amazon employee. You can sign a union card, and that's some of the best help we can get. And I also just want to, you know, talk about the size of these warehouses and how we could use that to our advantage. JFK, you guys have like 8,000 people. I think RDU 1 is like 5,000 to 6,000. So that's one of the important things about, you know, delegation is, you know, you have so much talent within the warehouse that can, like Chris was saying, social media, music departments, and all those different types of groups. You know, we recently found someone that finished law school, and they're helping us with our grievance committee and filing those ULPs, you know, with you know, all these unjust firings that we're going to have. You know, Amazon is not, we've had people in management that communicate, we're not putting names out, but, you know, they've told us that they're being directed to have their eyes open towards any violation, because they're looking for any excuse to write up employees and get them out the door. And they're especially going to go after organizers. So, yeah.
Yeah, and here's the thing, guys. The ALU doesn't know that the GM of JFK came from, you know where? Bessemer. He was the former AGM from Bessemer.
Yeah, they pulled off a ton of different. They pulled off a ton of different union busting tactics. Sure, go ahead. Go ahead.
Here's what happened. Felipe Santos, the former GM from JFK, got promoted to a corporate position back in late May. He sent out 2 letters to the workforce, and then with a particular name in it, Raymond Roach. Then nobody inside the ALU knew who he was, only myself, because myself have contact with the Bessemer folks. Then I called Isaiah, who I spoke with when the ALU met with the people from Bessemer in DC, when Chris Boss spoke in Senate panel in DC, and alerted them about Ray Roach coming to JFK. And then when Ray Roach came, he started to do union busting talks to several workers in JFK. And what is the ALU leadership doing about these talks? absolutely nothing, because the ALU is so distracted right now about other things, getting their training by, guess who, folks? Shane McAlevey.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah, my surmise is that that Felipe Santos got that promotion because he was willing to do a lot of hatchet work at the end of the campaign. So after JFK won the victory, this was in the news. They fired over a half dozen managers at JFK 8 and replaced them presumably with people who are even more aggressively anti-union. Even though some of these managers, some of these supervisors who got fired were definitely doing the job of union busting, they failed, they lost. So I think it was a message to everyone across the country: union bust. If you're a manager, union bust, your head is on the chopping block. And then he was willing to do that work. He fired all these people, and then he got his raise, and they brought in Raymond Roche from Bessemer. Why? Because Bessemer succeeded in their union busting. So they're putting in the top union busting, general manager that they have into this organization, into this warehouse that's trying to win a contract. There's an escalation there.
It's a big message.
Reason for doing that.
Mm-hmm.
The reason to do that is we are going to go nuclear on this. And so, I think that's a thing that ALU really should be spending a lot of time focusing on, is what are all of their tactics and strategies moving forward? What are they doing, and how do we combat it? I think Jason's right, that there is a lot of distraction. There's doing a lot of legal stuff right now. They're in 6 different, legal court cases that are going on through the NLRB. They're using their lawyers to go after me. There's a lot of distraction. Chris and other leaders are distracted by panels and touring the country, trying to get other people on board. There's a real aggressive strategy there. There might be, I don't know, but there might be a plan by Amazon leadership to, they might be building out capacity around JFK 8 to be able to shut it down if it came to that. This is the level of nuclear option they're willing to attempt if they have the leverage to do it. So we have to think about those things.
Responding to you, Matsy. I've been hearing the announcement that Amazon made regarding their warehouse closures. At least they announced that 5 warehouses in Massachusetts, they are closing down. But as of JFK 8, they haven't announced nothing yet, but anything could be possible because Amazon financially, the recent report is they are not good. And this is why they are downsizing. They're subleasing some warehouses. So we might see contracts in some warehouses either expiring, you name it. So we might see some warehouses either closing, subleasing, we might see anything happen here. So the taxes, the Amazon's MO was the following. In Bessemer, they stopped the vote, and at JFK is to stop the contract. And this is why Chris Moss is so focused right now, touring the country to unionize other Amazon facilities and not focusing on JFK 8. That is the big fish. And if they lose JFK 8, they will lose the rest.
Yeah. And again, I wish we had more time tonight. We're at time, and I apologize that we don't have more. Again, I want to have each of you back. I want to give you more time to talk. We definitely have more questions for each of you. We appreciate all the work that each one of you are doing to continue to organize your facility beyond working there. Again, I love what Tim said about going to work and become a SALT type of employee. I think that's great, and signing union cards, because the reason why is they need a certain percentage of people to sign a union card in order to have it declared a union. I believe it's 50% with the NLRB. Again, thank you so much, everybody, tonight. We will be back for sure and have more conversations with these organizers. I can't thank you guys enough. All of their contacts and all their Twitter are in the description below on all the platforms. Again, this has been Indie News Network. We really appreciate your time, and we offer solidarity to these workers. Donate to their solidarity funds. We've got some solidarity funds in there. Participate, get involved, tell everybody about what's happening, share this stream. And again, we really can't say thank you and appreciate what you guys are doing enough to help your fellow coworkers. It really is admirable. So again, for tonight, I'm going to say thank you. This is Indy out, and have a great night, everybody.